So over the course of the last several weeks, a huge topic of conversation has been Komurasaki, and in chapter 939, Oda did his very best to confirm her as Hiyori, if it was not already confirmed by the fact that she stated that that was who she was. But despite the fact that Oda is trying to drag us left and right and wherever he so chooses with Komurasaki, I can't help but think that she is, right now, one of the most interesting characters that we've gotten to know in Wano. And I think one of the most mysterious. And I think for me, this is less about what we have been given about Komurasaki, because I think a lot of people have been outspoken about the fact that, for the most part, Komurasaki has been disappointing because, for no other reason, she's very similar to many other characters in One Piece, and the progression of her story was, I guess for most people, pretty apparent and pretty obvious. We've gotten several stories about a tsundere-like, antagonistic female who is in fact a good and has good motives. Turns out to be an ally. Whatever negative aspects of her character is completely contrived and not who she actually is. And also happens to be a princess, who at this point is in need of saving. So yeah, so far as for what we've been given about Komurasaki, it does not break the mold. But for me, what makes her interesting is not what we have been given about her, but how we've been given it, the nuance surrounding it, and frankly, the uncertainty. A lot of people ripped into Pudding and Whole Cake Island, but I also found her incredibly interesting, if only because the absurd amount of discussion and disagreement and various perspectives about who she was and what she would do in the story. And for me, that paid off. Her story was a roller coaster. At how many different parts of Whole Cake Island did people think that they knew everything that there was to know about her? Just up until Oda twisted it again. And I'm getting the same sort of vibes about Komurasaki. Despite all that we have gotten so far, I still think that there is more that we need to know that could potentially change everything. Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, just for the sake of transparency, this is the Komurasaki that we have right now. This is the Komurasaki that Oda is trying to sell. Despite the way that she may have been portrayed when she was first introduced, that is not her. She acts a certain way because maybe she feels like she needs to in order to blend in and stay low-key. She is in fact Hiyori, the princess of the Kozuki, the sister of Momonosuke. She is loyal to her cause, and she has demonstrated on multiple occasions her good nature, even if that wasn't always readily apparent to the people who may have known her. Such examples include opposing the shogun and her desperate protection of Toko. A pretty obvious guess as to where the story may be heading, and I think that there's some foreshadowing that may support this as well, as at some point in time Komurasaki will become the damsel in distress. She might not be the only one, but we can see when Komurasaki is first introduced, and in fact, same chapter that hinted that Komurasaki was in fact Hiyori, Momonosuke says this: if he finds out about Hiyori talking about the shogun, he will certainly go after her. I can only meet her after we win this war. I think that this line reads as pretty typical Oda foreshadowing. At some point in time, the shogun will become aware that Hiyori is alive and who she may be, and then go after her. And it may also be true that Momonosuke does not officially meet her until near the conclusion of the battle. To be honest with you guys, this second line is actually, to me, more interesting than the first. The first is pretty obvious, pretty typical One Piece. Woman needs help, gets saved. But the second bit seems very contrived. It doesn't feel like something that Oda really needed to put in the story. Why exactly does he need to put a time frame to when Momonosuke should or should not meet Hiyori? Just my personal feel on this line is this is something that you don't put in the story. This is something that you don't think up and you don't write unless you already know where the story is going and you are foreshadowing it. And so as we can see the story progress, Komurasaki is currently taking care of Zoro, and we assume that at some point he will actually protect her. He knows Momonosuke. He will at some point in time reconvene with the rest of the Straw Hats and all of their allies before the final war, and should deliver Hiyori to her, in which case she would reveal her identity. So connecting the dots here, essentially what Momonosuke is doing is he is warning us, the readers, that when he finally meets Hiyori and finds out who she is, that is when she will be in danger. And with the amount of leaked information in Wano, there's definitely some kind of spy or some kind of traitor, then you could kind of see how that would play out. So yeah, have we here essentially mapped out the rest of Komurasaki's story for the most part, going through Wano? I don't think so. So far, I think as far as Komurasaki's story goes, there is one element that, right now, doesn't seem to have any obvious payout. This was the Komurasaki that Oda first introduced and almost immediately scrapped. Komurasaki who seduced wealthy men and destroyed their lives in order to take their gold. So what we do know about this is it's clear that Oda was inspired by the lore of the Kitsune and then decided to incorporate various elements of that into Komurasaki's character. But that isn't enough for Oda to throw that in the story. Oda always layers these things. There is a reason, a prerogative, a goal, an objective, whatever you might call it, in Komurasaki acting this way. It'll have some kind of payoff. I think that some people want to say that Komurasaki is doing this in order to remain low-key and essentially act like she isn't Hiyori. But let's be real here, if that was really her goal, this only draws attention to her. It makes her less inconspicuous, more likely to be found out. And to be honest with you guys, it's with this aspect of Komurasaki's motives that Oda is being the most secretive. I mean, I'll be honest guys, he was pretty obvious that Komurasaki was Hiyori, but why Komurasaki was taking money from wealthy people, no, that's something that Oda is not yet ready to reveal. It implies that that might just be more important. As crazy as that might be to think. And again, frankly guys, I think that it is from this, and an attempt to understand it, which leads to the most interesting conclusions and theories about her. So yeah, let's play around with it a bit and go in all sorts of different directions. So yeah, first let's start with the possibility that Komurasaki is the traitor who has sold out Kinemon's group in Wano. Now I know that this idea in and of itself will be contentious, but make sure that you listen to everything that I have to say about this before you judge my opinion one way or the other. I know that I've already said who I think the traitor is, that is not Komurasaki, but I think that this discussion is warranted. But anyway, let's start with building the headcanon which would justify this, and I really don't think that it is all that difficult to do. As Komurasaki herself stated in this last chapter, she was essentially abandoned by literally everyone. Her brother and many of the vassals who would have protected her were sent off 20 years into the future. Her mother died, her father died, and she was just left to suffer. I mean, to me, this isn't all that different from being told since you were a child that you were useless, while your brother and many of your subordinates are actively trying to fix what has been going wrong in your country. You're just left off to the sidelines. You can be of no assistance to us, so just watch. For me, guys, this is a very realistic rationale for allowing Komurasaki Hiyori to eventually resent her own family. They left her to a life of misery where she eventually became a prostitute. Like, that's some real stuff. And so if you just consider this thought and reread all of what Komurasaki told to Zoro in the last chapter, it creates the impression, along with the other instances in which we've seen her, that she isn't entirely being genuine. Similar to putting it appears as though she may be overacting. And even in the middle of this conversation, Zoro has a ... as though maybe he doesn't fully buy everything that she is trying to tell him. Or if he does buy it, maybe the ... means that Zoro is in shock at how wronged she has been by her own family. And at the end of this conversation, I think that she says something that is important to keep in mind thematically going into the future of Wano. She says, maybe it's best if I don't see them before the battle at all. It wouldn't be right to throw cold water on a warrior's fight, right, Otoko? This is almost exactly what Momonosuke said. He shouldn't involve Hiyori at all until the battle is complete, because she needs to be protected. She's not, quote, a warrior. But at the same time that she said this, giving the impression that she believes that maybe I should stay out of it, I'm not a fighter. We see her at the very beginning of Wano doing all sorts of nastiness, which if she is an ally would only make sense if she wants to take a more active role in helping bring down the shogun. She's trying to involve herself. So just as an example here, she's seen essentially manipulating wealthy people within Wano's capital, taking all of their money from them. This money then she could potentially use to help fight against the shogun, or try in whatever way that she can to bring down Orochi society and the separation of the wealthy, the haves from the have-nots. So again, here in this particular rationalization, we're assuming that she is an ally, but it sort of gives you confirmation that she is not being entirely genuine in her conversation with Zoro. Maybe I shouldn't involve myself, I'm not a warrior. But why have you been doing everything that you're doing, if it's all an act? So I'm not saying that I believe this, guys, but what I am saying is that there's a very real reason to question Komurasaki's objectives. Who she actually is. Maybe the Komurasaki that we first saw is the real Komurasaki. If we can basically prove that she was lying to Zoro, or likely lying to Zoro, that makes her a liar. Somebody who it's questionable to trust. If that wasn't already emphasized by the difference in how she was first portrayed to how she is being portrayed now. One of these is real and one of these is fake. Again, guys, serious pudding vibes. She is a capable actress. Very much able to play different roles depending on what is expected of her. So to sort of complete this headcanon, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for Komurasaki to have betrayed Momonosuke in favor of the Shogun Orochi. I just think that that connection doesn't make any sense. She hasn't shown to have any sympathy or loyalty towards the Shogun himself. So as a traitor, she would only really make sense as being part of a third party, potentially loyal to Kiyoshiro, who has objectives outside of both the Shogun and Momonosuke. I've talked before about how I could definitely see Kiyoshiro wanting to become the Shogun himself. He doesn't want the Kozuki in power, he doesn't want Orochi to be in power, he wants to be the Shogun, and Komurasaki could be his subordinate. I think that's the only way right now to argue her as the traitor. But there's a huge issue, I think, with this theory that a lot of people have already pointed out to me and others, and they believe this is, I guess it lends towards the idea that this is almost too similar to something that we have recently got in the story. This is almost like a Pudding 2.0 situation. Komurasaki poses as an ally just as Pudding did, betrays the Strats just as Pudding did, and we would assume at some point, again become their allies or change her perspective or stance or something along those lines. And if this is in fact the case, the only way in which I could see it being different and interesting and new is if Komurasaki is the traitor and never redeems herself, never again joins forces with them, which I just cannot see. We're talking about Momonosuke's sister who he hasn't seen for 20 years. If she is the traitor, is she not going to come back? I don't think so. So I guess this leads me to say what it is that I actually believe. Right now, we know that there is a traitor, somebody on the inside, somebody who knows too much has sold out Kinemon and company. The story is slowly going to lead towards a reveal of who this individual is. And I think Komurasaki could very easily be Oda's red herring. The person that he wants us to begin to suspect, but who is not the traitor. And so, as I sort of said earlier, guys, the rationalization for questioning Komurasaki's loyalties and objectives it's very, very easy. And it really makes you wonder whether or not Oda intended for us to question her. From the moment that she is introduced, she's supposed to be villainous and evil, somebody that we won't like. And we need some kind of payoff for that. And one way that makes a lot of sense is if Komurasaki is used as a decoy, distracting us from who the actual traitor may or may not be. And I do think that there are intelligent ways to turn what it is that we know and what it is that we are questioning about Komurasaki into a cohesive story that does not make her the traitor. Yes, as we are speculating, she is not being 100% authentic with Zoro. Yes, there may be lies in there at various places. But the act and the lies do not exist for the purpose of her hiding herself as the traitor. They hide her other motives. That she wishes to help in the fight versus the Shogun. Both Momonosuke and Komurasaki have said the same thing. As a woman, she shouldn't be involved in this fight because she is not a warrior. And this echoes her treatment 20 years in the past, where everybody was sent to the future to help restore Wano's future while she was left behind to wait it out and make babies. I don't think that we should ignore Wano's culture, something that Oda has taken the time to describe to us, and many of our mindsets is very archaic. There's a lot of conversation after the last chapter about whether Okiku could actually be a trap, You know, some kind of male in disguise, because in this last chapter, Komurasaki refers to Kiku as Kiku Nojo, which is a male name. But I don't think that she is a male, but I do think that she does whatever she can to pose as a male, because in Wano culture, only males can be samurai. And it feels like the only warrior-esque role that a woman can play in this society is that of a kunoichi, or a female ninja. And even then, I doubt that any of them would actually play an active role in battle. We said before that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Komurasaki to act as she did when she was first introduced, if she's just simply trying to hide her identity, blend in, and carry on the Kozuki name. But it does make sense if she's actually trying to do something to help Momonosuke's cause and help the country of Wano. What I'm saying, guys, is maybe Komurasaki resents her role as a woman to be protected. Orochi society is built upon the trampling of the poor. They work hard, they don't get paid very well, they don't eat very much, so that the wealthy can have all of this privilege. I think that it makes sense for Komurasaki to want the wealthy to experience the lives of the poor that they subjugate them to every single day, and in the process accumulate a vast amount of wealth herself. What exactly is she doing with all this money that she takes from the wealthy of Wano? Is this Komurasaki's own way of trying to help? Of trying to be involved? So guys, this idea was brought to my attention on Twitter just the other day, and I want to share it with you guys because I think that it's really cool. But it seems pretty apparent that Komurasaki stands with the poor. When she is first introduced, she makes this grand statement, "I hate the poor," but that is clearly not the truth. She was raised in destitution. Her best friend seems to be Toko from the village of leftovers. She creates the impression that she hates the poor because she is in fact secretly a champion of the poor. She helps them. And we know of one other person from Wano who is of a similar mind. The Witching Hour boy. The Robin Hood. He steals from the rich and gives to the poor. I just want to throw it out there, guys. Is Komurasaki the Witching Hour boy? You want to talk about Oda making a point. For the last, I would say 6 months at least, perhaps even longer, people have been complaining about sexism in One Piece and the treatment of women. They're all the same. They never play any real significant role. Even if they are in positions of power, they don't actually do much. And it isn't far-fetched that Oda has come to hear of these complaints. So Oda devised Komurasaki, the person that we are all supposed to assume is going to be, the typical princess, damsel in distress, needs to be saved, but is actually a significant warrior, who from her childhood resented not being able to help and fight, and vowed to become strong. I mean, look at when Komurasaki slapped the shogun. From that alone, it doesn't appear as though she is as weak as she wants to give the impression of. And at the same time, she was slashed by Kiyoshiro. We saw the blood, but she seems absolutely fine. Does Komurasaki spend her nights training her body as the Witching Hour boy? And I think that all of this could be very purposeful in the story. Oda loves delving into various themes in each arc in order to make some sort of point that relates to real life. And I think that it's fair to wonder whether or not Wano's culture needs to grow sooner rather than later, and begin to accept that women can do more than they are allowed right now, which would be the same point that Oda is trying to make with Okiku. But yeah, guys, I would say that is the story that I buy the most right now. There's definitely reason to suspect Komurasaki, but I just wonder whether or not that is legit or whether or not that is artificial. Could Komurasaki be a red herring for who the traitor is? And at the same time, if we need to explain Komurasaki's behavior, personality, and actions when she was first introduced, it could very well be that as a woman, she's not supposed to help, she's supposed to be protected, but she didn't like that. She is purposefully and actively acting against what she was ordered to do. And maybe this has inspired her to become a warrior, unbeknownst to most. And then from this point, the only real hanging plot thread left to be had as far as Komurasaki is concerned is what fruit will bear from her relationship with Kiyoshiro. And that kind of completely depends on who his loyalty is to and what his motives are. But do you guys think it's crazy to think, or am I alone in thinking that it'd be kind of cool to see near the conclusion of the Wano arc, at least Wano versus the Shogun, to see a Kiyoshiro versus Komurasaki fight? A legit fight. Komurasaki is former subordinate. Maybe someone who actually trained her in his plans to eventually depose the shogun. Komurasaki joining him because maybe she couldn't be certain that the prophecy would be fulfilled and Momonosuke would return. And another thing that a lot of us are speculating or wondering about as of right now is whether or not Komurasaki is actually Hiyori or not. Is this some sort of ruse? Is something weird going on here? But honestly, it'd be kind of interesting if Oda's interpretation of all of this is basically say, yeah, Komurasaki isn't Hiyori. The person that Momonosuke and company left behind 20 years ago, she's gone. She died. Komurasaki took her place. But yeah, guys, I just kind of want to share my thoughts on this because this seems, honestly, to me, pretty persuasive. Something that could, the direction of the story could definitely be taking. But as always, I'm curious as to hear your thoughts about this, whether you noticed something or pieced something together that I might have missed. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.